we get started today, let's go ahead and look at not one, but two scholars who did an incredible job yesterday. I was so impressed by Araceli's response. Araceli did an awesome job of naming her thinking jobs and taking notes throughout her text on important things that the author taught her. She went above and beyond and even added a couple extra. She also did a fantastic job on her thinking job chart. She told us about what she learned, about when Daisy passed away, how her and her husband started their own newspaper, and when she was born. Now, the thing that really impressed me about Araceli's work was how she described the change that Daisy made in our world. She said her work with NAACP not only transformed the civil rights movement, but it also made a household name. Bates a household name. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled segregated schools were unconstitutional. After the ruling, Bates began gathering African American students to enroll at all-white schools. So we know right here how she started to make sure that Black students and white students could be in the same school, told us about the big change that she made in our world, making sure that students could be together. Now that brings me to my next scholar who I would like to shout out, and that is Watson. Way to go, Watson. Watson also did a good job of taking his notes and making his thinking job chart. He had similar facts to Araceli and a similar change. I wanted to point out Watson's point of view because he did a really good job of picking out what the author thought about Daisy Bates. He said, "I think the author's point of view is that Daisy Bates was an amazing person who changed the world." And I couldn't agree more with you, Watson. Great job, Watson and Araceli. What an awesome job. What an awesome start to our week. For today's goals, we're going to be taking notes by adding comments to our text. We're also going to focus on how an author can help us recognize big changes. And we're going to fill in our thinking job charts, just like yesterday, but with a new text. I'm really excited because today we get to read about a new person, Dolores Huerta. And just like yesterday, we're going to be reading about a change that was made. The first thing we're going to do is scroll through and start to think about what our genre might be. So genre fiction, nonfiction. If you haven't yet, make sure you have your text opened up so you can follow along. Once you've thought about what the genre is, go ahead and drag your mouse over that title and add your comment by pressing the bubble with the plus sign. Now, if you said that today's article was nonfiction, you are correct. And we know when we look at a nonfiction text, we're reading about something real. And the author is going to be teaching us things as well as giving us clues to what they think about the topic. So we are going to be looking for what they're teaching us and the point of view. Now the next thing we need to do is make a prediction. What do we think this text is going to be about? I think the text will be about. Go ahead and pause, and on your copy of the text, make your prediction. Now that we've jotted down our thinking jobs and made our prediction, we're ready to read and find out what this text is really about, making sure we're paying attention to big changes that were made. Dolores Huerta is a Mexican-American activist who spent her life fighting for the rights of workers. Huerta was born in New Mexico on April 10, 1930. When she was a young girl, Her mother worked many jobs to save money for her own business. Her mother was able to buy a small hotel and restaurant in California. Huerta's mother showed compassion to her workers and treated them fairly. Huerta was inspired by her mother's actions. Dolores Huerta got her teaching degree and briefly taught at a few schools. She realized that many of her students were children of farm workers. These children came to school hungry because their family did not have money to feed them. Huerta wanted to help these farmer families. She knew she could have a bigger impact if she organized workers and fought for better working conditions. In 1955, she co-founded an organization that helped more Hispanic people register to vote. She started working towards getting more opportunities for people in her community. Wow, in the first two paragraphs, we've already found out so many awesome things about Dolores Huerta. What is one amazing thing that the author has already taught you? Go ahead and think in your brain for a minute. One amazing thing that they taught you. One thing that I thought was really amazing when I read this was that she co-founded an organization that helped Hispanic people register to vote. I know that voting helps make changes, so I think that's a really smart idea. So I'm going to put a T for teach, and I'm going to say this will help create big changes. Now in these first two paragraphs, you might have thought something else was a really interesting fact. If you did, go ahead and pause here. Scroll your mouse over what you thought was interesting and add your note with a T for teach and why you thought it was important. Pause now. All right, now that you've written down an interesting thing that the author taught you or you learned in the first two paragraphs, we're ready to continue reading, continuing to think about those big changes and what the author is teaching us here. In 1962, Huerta created the National Farm Workers Association. Alongside fellow labor activist Cesar Chavez, this group helped farm workers fight for their rights. One of Huerta's major accomplishments was organizing a large strike in 1965. A strike is a type of protest. This strike occurred in Delano, California. Many grape farm workers were not being paid a good wage and did not have any rights to ask for better working conditions. Huerta helped organize over 5,000 grape workers. Wow. They stopped working in order to protest for better working conditions and pay. People around the country began to boycott these grapes to support the strike. To boycott something is to refuse to buy it out of protest. Huerta helped these farm workers and many others negotiate their new working conditions. How awesome is that? There were so many amazing things that she just did in this paragraph. I want you to pick one amazing thing and add a note for T for teach. Go ahead and pause here and add one more note to your third paragraph. Now that you've added another note, we're ready to read the end of our text. Huerta was a strong believer in the power of nonviolent protest. She continued to lead many strikes and boycotts through the 1960s. Huerta's leadership made it possible for workers to form unions. Unions are organizations that protect workers and allow them to bargain for better working conditions. But Dolores Huerta did not limit herself to helping farm workers. Later in life, she helped elect more Latinos and women to political offices. She is an important activist who has spent her life working for others. Wow, not only did I learn more about Dolores in these last two paragraphs, but I also got a better idea in the last paragraph of what the author thinks about her. Your job right now is to find one more thing the author taught you, and then you're going to start thinking about what are some big changes that Dolores Huerta made. What was the most important change that she made? When you find the most important change, you're going to add it to your text box here. You'll also need to add what the author taught you about her under teach. And you will need to add what the author thought about Dolores Huerta in point of view. I'm really proud of your hard work and recognizing how people make big changes this week. Continue to work hard, and I cannot wait to look at your work today and decide who to spotlight tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.